Hey there, Scott Friedel here. Happy July 2023. We just finished our mid-year update with Mr. Brian Buffini, and he has shared with us some data and information about where the real estate market's going, what interest rates are going to do soon, and how it all affects you. So take a listen.
Well, the top of the morning to you, Brian Buffini here with our mid-year bold predictions.
Seriously, I've been listening to Brian Buffini for years. He predicted the crash of 2008 and how it would recover in 2013. So I really trust this guy.
So we're going to do that today. I have 3 points for you today I'm going to cover, as I always do. And this is a big deal. Whether you're in real estate or not, we have obviously a huge real estate audience tuning in today, but we have hundreds of thousands of people on this show today. And if you're not in real estate and construction represents 16.5% of the U.S. economy, the largest economy in the world. So it's the most important sector in the entire world economy. So when we talk about the real state of real estate, it's the real estate of the entire market. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the real estate of real estate. We're going to talk about what's up with mortgages. And I have a great guest for you today, a man I've known for 20 years with one of the most prodigious resumes in the history of real estate, in my opinion, a man whose information and insight I respect enormously. And then lastly, we'll finish up today by finishing the year what you've experienced in 2023. So let's talk about it. We're going to talk about what the media is saying, what your customers are feeling, and what and how a pro communicates. So we're going to talk right now about the media. This is the onslaught that every customer in real estate is experiencing. And that's why you'll hear buyers saying, I'm waiting till the market crashes before I write an offer. And I know you've all heard that stuff. And here's why. All kinds of different information coming from different entities. In fact, sometimes the same ones. So the Wall Street Journal, home prices posted the largest annual drop in more than 11 years. So we had an 11-year run-up in the price of homes. And this April was the first time we saw prices leveling off and actually drop down a bit. So that gives people pause for concern. USA Today, here's an article from them saying, buying a house, not now, many Americans say, as frustration over economic conditions mount. Here's Go Banking rates, and it says the housing market in 2023, I love this one, prices are now so high that banks are losing money on mortgages. You know, I was like, what in the frost is that, right? But this is what people are getting. CNBC, people tune into this every day, market call. Okay, here's Home Depot posts worst revenue miss in about 20 years.
This news bit really hits home with me. I know I can get real emotional about the news and really go overboard with it. A lot of times this information is just blown up or just not even true, so we have to be cautious of that.
So I want to share with you first and foremost what your customers are feeling. It's very important that you know where they're at. So the first and foremost is fearful. People are fearful. You know, we all know how jacked up the culture is, how divided people feel, but people are fearful. Realtor Magazine came out, is the media keeping home buyers in a state of fear? So even our own magazine comes back and says, hey, people are being jacked up into fear. The second thing your customers are feeling is FOMO, the fear of missing out. We know that a seller in July of 2022, when their house was at its zenith, feels like they missed out, that the prices have come down a little bit. And many agents, and I've certainly bumped into some lately, are pricing homes as if July of 2022 is still today. And so there's this adjustment period. A great quote from Holly Whitaker says, Americans aren't stupid. We are, however, predisposed to herd behavior.
You know, there's no reason to have fear of missing out. Maybe you missed the highest point of sales last year and you're listing this year. Maybe you're going to get a little less than you had hoped. But if you're going to buy a house right after, you're also going to pay a little less. So it is relative. Keep that in mind.
On what we've been encouraging our coached agents to communicate to their customers. First and foremost, here's a Wall Street Journal article that says that U.S. home equity hits the highest level on record, $27.8 trillion in equity. Your buyers are saying, I'm waiting until the market crashes. Many outlets are telling you the market's going to crash. Many of the Shark Tank people will tell you the market's going to crash. Lots of talking heads. It's going to be very similar to 2008. That's all I keep hearing. I want to share with you right now, I'll put up any amount of money on a bet you want, but I want to show you why it's actually a physical impossibility that we could ever return to a market like 2007, 8, and 9. First and foremost, 39% of homes in the United States are owned free and clear, right? Third of all homes, you can't foreclose on a house where there's no mortgage. Secondly, 29% of homes that have 50% or more equity. That means that 68.1% of all homes in the marketplace have at least 50% equity or are owned free and clear. So the fact of the matter is there is no market crash coming. There is no wholesale foreclosures coming. That was a totally different market, a totally different set of lending circumstances. I see this stuff repeated in the media.
I have to admit, I never knew we had so much equity in our homes across the United States. It's fantastic. And another reason I continue to preach, buy homes, gain wealth over time. This guest coming up that Brian has about mortgage and lending rates and what's happening there has a long list of credentials. I cut all that out to shorten this video, but take a
Dave
listen.
Stevens. Now, some of you will be extremely familiar with Dave Stevens, and some maybe not so much. But Dave is one of the most extraordinary resumes I've ever seen in real estate. And we know each other a long time. Dave, was insights on the market. Thanks for making time for us.
Good to be with you, Brian, as always.
Well, I think we want to cut through some clutter. You do a great job of giving perspective to people and, also letting people know, hey, we got some good opportunities in front of us. So let's kind of start with the big picture of what you're seeing with mortgage rates. You have a great understanding, your fingers on the pulse. What are you seeing with mortgage rates? That's the big question everybody wants to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think for everybody as they look at interest rates, it's really easy to become dismayed. In fact, I love your intro because you can get really confused by bad information. The Federal Reserve's done one of the most dramatic increase in interest rates that we've seen in our lifetimes. What you're looking at here is the history of the federal funds rate. That's the rate that Chairman Powell's been moving most recently, going back to 1955. So we have decades of history. And the only thing that I want everybody to look at the slide and realize is that every time the Fed starts raising rates, they always overshoot. They always result in create a recession, small or large, and then they drop rates shortly thereafter. The gray vertical lines in this chart are recessions since 1955. This is from the Federal Reserve of St. Louis. And as you can see, the Fed, in response to trying to slow inflation of one kind or another over the decades, has started raising rates, but they always go too far, just as Powell has done this time. And so while the Fed chairman paused, as you pointed out with inflation, it is dropping. And we think inflation is dropping faster than maybe Chairman Powell thinks.
Right.
But we will realize that when he does by stopping the increases. But all that leads you, along with a lot of other indicators, is to realize one core reality. Rates are coming down, gang.
Yeah.
They aren't going to be up at this level much longer. We expect by the end of the year, 30-year fixed rate loans will have already begun to drop, and they will drop even further next year. What you have here is a copy of an article from Forbes, which just highlights a lot of different economists' views. Heading off at the very top, be prepared to jump on in a dip in rates. Robert Frick from Navy Federal Credit Union. Freddie Mac's economist, Sam Cater, rates should gently decline over the course of 2023. NAR's chief economist, mortgage rates will drop with 30-year mortgages falling progressively to 6% this year and into the mid 5% range next year. I think it's going to go lower than that, but that's fine. That's Lawrence Young. Yeah. First American, Bank of America, the Mortgage Bankers Association, mortgage bankers chief economist Mike Fratantoni, one of the smartest economists in America, in my view. Right. Our forecast is for 30-year mortgages to be closer to 5.5 by year end, and he predicts dropping into the mid 4s next year. People don't guess this; they're not making it up. They look at things like spreads between the 2-year and the 10-year treasury, which is inverted, and the 10-year and the 30-year, and things that I'm not going to bore you with. But all the economic indicators basically are screaming at market makers and Wall Street and saying, gang, rates are coming down. Gang, rates are coming down. That doesn't mean, as you would say, Brian, you don't wait for that rate.
Right.
You buy the home of your dreams when you can buy the home of your dreams. You rent the rate, and then you refinance it when it comes down further. Right. But I do think that those lower rates are going to bring in an incredible wave of home buying demand as we go forward. And I'll show you in just a moment.
You bet. Well, no doubt.
Market. But Brian, pent-up demand is also one of these things that's an interesting thing to look at. And there's pent-up demand with buyers, and this slide's really important as we talk to that. But sellers are also holding back, as you pointed out, because they have a 2% rate. But at the end of the day, if you're a growing family and you've had another child recently and you don't have a room for that child, you're going to have to go buy a house.
Yep.
And if you're retired and you don't want that big house anymore, you may hold on for a while thinking, God, that 2% rate is so good. You know, maybe selling it into a 6% or 7% rate isn't doable. But when rates get into the 5s or 4s, people are going to look at that difference and go, it's time, it's worth it. I'm going to make that move, and we'll see resale inventory rising.
Yeah.
But for all of you out there who may be working with potential clients or sitting on the sidelines, waiting for something, some miracles for home prices to drop even more, or for the situation to get better for home buyers, you better give that up. This is the distribution of everybody in the United States of America by age. It's a population distribution from 0 to 100 plus. And what everybody I think in real estate knows is the median age for first-time home buyers is somewhere between age 34 and 35. I underlined 35 on this chart. If you draw your lines up to the black line above and go to the left of age 35, meaning 34-year-olds, 33-year-olds, 32-year-olds, those spikes represent the biggest wave of population ever in the history of this country to be rolling into the median age for first-time home ownership that we have ever seen in the history of America. Bigger than the baby boom generation when they started buying in the early 1980s. The millennials, which we've been talking about for a long time, are here now. And the nation is literally standing. All of you are literally standing on the front doorstep of the largest wave of home buying demand in U.S. history. And that's not guesswork, it's fact. I just showed you the data, and there are multiple slides that talk about that.
Yeah. So I think you're bang on there. Okay, here's the sexy part, Dave. We call this the bold predictions. You've already alluded to it. I just think you got a great handle on this. I think it's going to be very encouraging for people to hear this. I really don't think they're hearing this anywhere else. Give us your projections for the rest of this year and into 2024, interest rates, transactions. What do you see happening?
Yeah, so I'm going to share with you some data. This is a forecast looking forward on a variety of things. I highlighted existing home sales and new home sales, as well as interest rates. This year's going to be a tough year. 2023, if you look at existing home sales, it's going to be about 4.2 million home sales, down from the 5 million that happened last year. And 2021 and 2020 were great years too. But if you notice in the forecast, the expectation is for ever increasing home sales. In fact, going out 2 years from now to 2025, it'll be a year bigger than last year. It'll line up to be the second or third biggest home sales year in American history. And it's going to be fed by those demographics that I showed you, and the low supply, which will improve enough to meet this demand, but still won't be enough. It will ensure steady home price appreciation, low single digits as we look in the outer years. People need to not focus on the here and now, because the here and now is an awkward technical environment brought on by the Federal Reserve, trying to control an overheated economy, which, as you said, is going to turn into a slinky as it heads downstairs in just a short bit here.
Right.
And that's why it also leads into our interest rate forecast, which is ending the year at sub 6% and literally going down into the mid 4s next year. And by the way, that will be complemented with a couple of Fed rate reductions in 2024, which they will have to do because they will have pushed us into a mild recession, and they will be reversing course, not as dramatically as they increased rates, but they will reverse course slightly as we look into the next year.
You bet.
All
And
of this is bullish, in my view.
Yeah.
So to recap, I think what Dave said here is true about this year, that it's a little tough. 2023 has been tough so far for some sellers. Not all, but in some segments of the market. But we're going to come out a little stronger next year with lower rates and that buyer pool of millennials that really start entering the market.
The supply and demand, we got that giant number of millennials, which is the core. You have employment, you have population, you have demand, and real estate is...
So there you have it. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions or thoughts, give me a ring. I'd love to sit down and talk to you about what is coming in the real estate market. How can I help you? Anything I can do for you, please reach out. Have a great day.